Hello, I'm Alan, and welcome to today's edition of Alan's Cycling Adventures. Today's going to be another good one. We've got our 9th state line crossing. We are going into Ohio today. We are riding today to Marysville, Ohio. And so, of course, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or ideas for future editions of Alan's Cycling Adventures, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Well, without further ado, let's ride. Today was another century ride. I actually felt surprisingly strong for this ride today, but we almost immediately got to the state line crossing, so here is the voiceover for the state line crossing. All right, hopefully this segment doesn't turn out to be too long. This is the first time that we're coming up on a state line crossing, and it's not listed as a waypoint on the GPS. But I know from looking at the map that it's fairly early in the ride. And we had started out going a little west and then a little bit north, and now we're headed east, and I know that's the direction of the Ohio state line. And so I thought I would start the real-time narration now. So if I'm more than a minute or so from the state line, I apologize. I hope I'm not boring you. But we are approaching our 9th state line crossing. As you know, we started in California, rode to the beach for our wheel dip before heading east so many weeks ago. Our first state line crossing was into Arizona, followed by New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and very soon we are coming up on Ohio. We only have a few more states to go in the coming days and weeks. Well, we actually have less than 2 weeks to go. We have, counting today, we have 11 riding days, plus that 19-miler that I'm not counting as a riding day. So it's getting close, but we still have to cross into Pennsylvania. That's another quick one. We just kind of nicked the corner of it before continuing on into New York. I think that one will take a few days. New York's a big state. Followed by Vermont. And then we have in one day 2 state line crossings, because from Vermont, which we'll be staying overnight in, we cross into and through New Hampshire and into Massachusetts. And there is the sign just ahead. Welcome to Ohio, the heart of it all. Woohoo!
Welcome to Ohio.
So a funny story, as you saw, as I pulled up on the state line crossing, I came upon Terry and Alex. They had left a little bit ahead of me, but just by a minute or two, and I caught up to them at the state line crossing. And when I pulled up, Alex got excited and said, "Oh, good, I get to take my picture with the influencer," which I thought was funny. I don't think I'm that much of an influencer, but I have to admit that my YouTube channel in particular has gotten quite a large number of views since the start of this trip. Certainly been very good for my viewership. And by the way, thank you everyone who's watching. I do appreciate it. So I did take a picture with her at the state line sign. And then we all took off, and we came upon a traffic light which was red, and I stopped, and then Terry and Alex came up behind me, and Terry said something about how there were no cars coming, and I said, "Well, it's red, but if you're going, I'll go." And he said, "Well, there's no cars, so I'm going." And so we all went, and then I said to Terry that, I may be the influencer, but you're the bad influencer. I thought that was pretty funny. Anyway, so we rode today from Richmond, Indiana to Marysville, Ohio, home of the Honda factory. I started at 7:03 a.m., the weather was clear and 57 degrees Fahrenheit at the start, with a feels-like temperature of 56 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was a little chilly, and it stayed in the 50s for the first couple of hours. I did opt to go without the arm and leg warmers, though for tomorrow's ride it's supposed to be in the low 50s and stay in the 50s pretty much either the entire ride or almost the entire ride. So tomorrow I'm thinking of wearing the arm and leg warmers because I don't think I'm going to need to take them off. The humidity at the start was 86%, and the wind was 9 miles per hour from the north. The wind did pick up and shift a bit over the course of the day. At the start, it was predominantly a headwind to a direct crosswind. And by the finish, it was a quartering tailwind. As a matter of fact, I felt pretty strong today, and was looking at my average speed at times and thinking, wow, I'm feeling really strong. I'm riding a great ride today. And then after the ride, I was sitting down having some pizza. More on that later. But I was having some pizza, and one of the members of our group sat down, and he was eating, and he said, "So what did you think of that tailwind today?" And I was a little disappointed, because here it was, I thought that I was just riding really strong today, and it turns out that the wind had shifted and picked up and become more of a tailwind. So, it is what it is. It was still a fast ride for a century for me. Speaking of, the length of today's ride was 108.05 miles. It wasn't originally supposed to be that long, but we had a detour we had to follow because one of the bridges that we were supposed to cross was out. My average moving speed today was 16.9 miles per hour. Like I said, that's fast for me, especially for such a long ride. My maximum speed was 33.1 miles per hour, and I had a total moving time of 6 hours. Excuse me. 6 hours, 22 minutes, 42 seconds. My elapsed time was 7 hours, 59 minutes, 0 seconds. So just under 8 hours. No heart rate data to report. At some point, about 2-ish hours into the ride, my watch unexpectedly disconnected from everything. I had to fiddle with it to get it to reconnect once I was at the hotel.
but as a result, I did not have heart rate data for the whole ride, so I'm not going to go over my average or max heart rates because they're kind of meaningless. As a result of the heart rate data being incomplete, I got what's probably a closer to true estimate of how many calories I burned. According to Garmin and Strava, I burned 4,887 calories. Like I said, that's probably closer to realistic. My average cadence was 68 RPM, and my maximum cadence was 96 RPM. In terms of elevation gained, I gained 2,175 feet according to Strava's map data, and 2,461 feet according to Garmin's barometric data. According to my cadence sensor, I had a total of 24,704 pedal strokes, and according to Strava, my average power output was 120 watts. The route today, there were no Garmin climbs. The route was predominantly along country roads, although towards the end, probably the last 20 to 30 miles, we were on Route 36, which was not a great place to ride a bike, but we've certainly ridden in worse places. We started in Richmond, Indiana. We very quickly came upon the state line between Indiana and Ohio and rode into New Paris, Ohio. Then we rode through New Madison, Savona, Wayne Lakes, Abbotsville, Bears Mill, Gettysburg, West Covington, and then Covington, where that first SAG was. That first SAG was amazing, by the way. The Ohio contingent of our group had all of their friends and family and coworkers show up in fairly large numbers, and they had set up quite a nice SAG stop for us, complete with decorations and a masseuse, although I did not get a massage because with the length of this ride, I wanted to try to get back on the road as quickly as possible. But that was available. They also had homemade cookies and chocolates. The cookies were in the shape of the United States, which was kind of cool. And there was a red line on the cookies tracing our route across the United States. Sorry for that pause there. It looked like I was getting to the end of the video, but I'm not. I still have a little bit more time to talk. Anyway, after that SAG in Covington, we went through St. Paris, where I stopped for a gel break and ended up having a conversation with one of the locals. Very interesting conversation. He was coming the other direction on a bicycle. I had pulled over. He saw me, turned around, came over, and struck up a conversation with me. He was the one who told us it looked like we were going to be riding on Route 36, which is not a great place to ride bikes. He also told me about the bike shop in town, which we ended up riding past, and it did look like a really nice bike shop. We continued into Westville and then Urbana, where we had our second SAG stop. Not long after that second SAG stop, I had a most unusual flat. I say most unusual because it's the first time I ever had a tube fail at the point where the valve stem attaches to the tube. There were no punctures in the tire. There were no issues with the rim. But when I when I took the wheel off and laid it down in the grass on the side of the road, I put it down where there was, I guess, some moisture, and put the bike down and got my tools out, and I picked up the tire and rim and saw bubbles forming around the base of the valve stem. Sure enough, I found no punctures or sharp objects in the tires or any issues with the rim. So I believe the tube just failed at the valve stem. But to be on the safe side, I usually tighten the little nut that holds the valve stem in place down every morning when I pump up the tires. I think I'm not going to tighten it as much going forward, just in case that is in fact putting stress on the valve stem. We then rode through Milford Center and finally into Marysville. By the way, there were no Garmin climbs on this route, and the route was mostly country roads with the exception of the stretch that was on Route 36. Tomorrow we are riding into Worcester, Ohio. Tomorrow looks like it's going to be a fairly tough day. Looks tougher than today because, as I said, we had an elevation gain of about 2,100 feet. Tomorrow we have more than double the elevation gain, even though the ride itself is about 10 miles shorter. The ride from Marysville to Worcester is about 98.5 miles, but we have 4,524 feet of climbing. It looks like the day after tomorrow is also going to be a climbing day. And then 2 days from tomorrow is a somewhat easier ride into Erie, Pennsylvania, our next state line crossing, for our fifth and final rest day. I am looking forward to that. I have some shopping I need to do, which I plan to do in Erie. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Enjoy the reception we got.
Well, that was a great ride. I am here in Marysville, and we have quite the welcome. This is a great town and a great state. Anyway, until next time, stay safe out there.